here. Okay, welcome everybody. We're doing a live stream, TikTok Live, episode 157. We're doing an interview with Phil Dietro with Inland Paraflite Incorporated. We're going to discuss powered parachute flying, his flight school and parachute planes, all kinds of stuff. Especially, we're going to lead up to our flight tomorrow morning on 4/28/2020. I'm going to pull Phil on the air here. Phil, hang tight. There you go.
How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm just fine. Looking forward to our flight tomorrow.
Great. Okay. Well, as we mentioned here, we're just kind of doing this thing on the fly. And hopefully I'm going to do a little bit of sharing and stuff like that while we're getting ready here. Anyway, while we're doing the discussion here, let's talk about, let's talk about our history. We are both, I guess, first generation high desert rats, right?
Yeah, I lived here so as a kid from 1960 on, other than when I was in the Army and a few other things, but been here most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was born in 66, and our family has kind of crossed paths quite a few times over the years.
So, oh yeah, I knew your dad many years ago in the TV business.
Yeah, you knew me before I was around too.
No, I knew him in the 70s when I actually started, dealing with him and working with him, fixing TVs and everything for the shop.
Okay. Yeah, I remember your dad too. I mean, he was quite the character. I liked him. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, over the years, you and I both have kind of a electronic background and stuff like that, and you've gone through your with your family going through your electronic store, something like that. You actually worked for Circuit City for a little bit.
Yeah, I worked for them for close to 6 years. I went in sales and then went into management. And I was in Santa Barbara as the video manager. And then when they opened Victorville, they brought me back over here. And I opened the Circuit City in Victorville when they first opened that little store there, where on the Mariposa side of the freeway. Got to think for that, which way that is for a second. So I was with them and then moved into another store down the hill as a manager. So stayed with them for a while and then eventually parted company, left the company.
Wow. So now during this time here, you mentioned that you also started the Inland Paraflite.
Yeah, in 1992, we started Inland Paraflite, which is strictly, actually 1993 is when the company started. We started flying these in 1992, me and my brother Stu, and eventually decided to become dealers for Paraplane and went back to Paraplane dealer training with my brother. And the guy that did the training was Steve Snyder, who originated the original Paraplane, which was a little single engine powered parachute that was under the ultralight rules. Okay, no license required. Went through dealer training. We came back and started doing introductory flights for people where they would go up solo the first time. When I first flew this, there was no two-seat aircraft. Everything was solo. So we're literally taking off on two-way radio with the instructor on the ground and coaching us through the flight, and we're taking off. And as I took off, I'm going like, oh my God, what in the world am I doing as I'm taking off at Santa Ynez Airport up by Santa Barbara? And it's funny, when I was working for Circuit City in Santa Barbara, this instructor was there and I had no idea that this existed at the time, and I could have went up there just up the street to Solvang and flown one back then, but like I say, not knowing, you just didn't do it because you didn't know it was there.
Wow. So you accidentally fell into this business then, in other words, right?
Pretty much. My brother had seen one of these things flying here locally, and he asked the guy, hey, can you show me how to fly it? And they had a rule when you bought a paraplane that you couldn't let anybody fly one until they went through a training course with an official paraplane dealer. So he went up to Santa Ynez and tried it out and did it and liked it, then told me about it. And I took a weekend off from Circuit City and we drove up there again, and he flew and I flew, and I ended up flying twice that morning. Got hooked. We went back later times in 92 flying, and ended up buying a used one together from the instructor dealer up there in Santa Ynez, and then kept flying it down here and ended up setting up to go back to Paraplane Corporation in New Jersey in March of 1993 after we started the company.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So we went through the training with them and then came out here and started doing the paraplane stuff.
So when did you start?
Go ahead.
Yeah, when did you start going full time on this? Or
full time was probably in trying to do it in 1998. I built it to where I could actually do it in probably, I'm thinking here time wise, 2004, something like that, I would say, because that's when the sport pilot rule came in. Until that time, when you're flying a powered parachute, you were flying either a single seat, which was under the ultralight rule, no license required, or with the two seat, they had an exemption from the FAA to do two seat flying for training. But nationally, that kind of got out of hand, but wasn't managed properly. So the FAA, knowing people wanted to fly two-seat aircraft or two-seat machines, came out with a sport pilot rule, which required a license and actually less training time than the exemption required. In order to get your basic flight instructor rating under the exemption, which you had to fly two people, you had to have 25 hours solo. With the sport pilot rule that we're under now, you need 10 hours dual training with a CFI, a certified flight instructor, and 2 hours solo, the minimum time. They've got other requirements in there too, minimum of 20 full stop landings. The CFI rating is, other than the category and class of aircraft we're flying, Dan, the CFI rating I hold is like a CFI rating for airplanes. The only difference is we are not a commercial rated pilot like they have to be, and we're not instrument rated, so we don't fly in the fog. Okay? So in clouds and things like that CFIs have to have instrument ratings to be able to fly in. So other than that, we have certified flight instructors to train you to get your license. And then in 2006, I went to the FAA examiner school in June, and became a designated pilot examiner. I was in the second batch of examiners that came out. And the examiner is the one that does the practical test or the check ride and issues the temporary pilot certificate when you've passed the practical test. So I train the students, I get another instructor to fly with them, and then I do the practical test, and I've trained them properly so they will know what they need to know and pass the test. Of course, they've had to have taken a written knowledge test as well, too. And we actually have a testing center out at Victorville Airport for the written test.
No, really? Are you using the same facility as the F4 jockeys, I presume?
Out there where they do the A&P training and everything at that school. They can administer any FAA written test in the book. That's Harold Andrews, Debbie, his wife, and Kevin Andrews.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? You perfectly segue in all the questions I'm going to ask you about. The flight training and the licensing, all this stuff. I personally went through private pilot training years ago, and it was fairly involved. That this is before the sports pilot license was available. It can be pretty expensive too, but I presume this is, I guess, less expensive than it would be for a traditional flight school.
Well, I'm not sure, depending on your flight instructor. What I offer in my flight training program, Dan, is we're flying in a parachute Airwolf, which most people aren't going to know what we're talking about, but it has a 100 horsepower Rotax 912 engine on it, which is an aircraft engine. The engine alone is $20,000. Okay, my aircraft new would be $45,000 to purchase now. The original paraplanes were like $39.95. Quite a change in pricing. It's a registered aircraft. We train dual for 10 hours. I got full dual controls. And what we do basically, we have certain maneuvers we have to teach you. Like you probably remember turns around a point, S-turns and stuff. Well, we teach that, and that's pretty easy to do. What the student has to master is takeoffs and landings, okay? And anybody can fly a powered parachute at 1,000 feet, okay? When I take people up for introductory flights or rides, as that people want to call them, but they're actually introductory flights because they actually get to fly the aircraft once we get up there with my dual controls from the back seat. We have to learn how to land and take off and deal with any wind changes and things that come up. And that's what we spend the bulk of our time doing. There's cross-country training involved too. The last student I had last fall, we did about a 70-mile round-trip cross-country flight between going from here out to Silver Lakes and then coming back and hitting Apple Valley and then going out to Fairview Valley, the dry lake bed out there east of the airport, and coming back and landing at the field finally. But, you know, so there's planning of that too. We plan it just like you would on paper with a sectional chart that, so you can, they understand how to do that, even though you can electronically do cross-country planning pretty easily. So they learn how to do landings, takeoffs and landings, touch and goes. You're coming around the pattern, you're touching down, you take off again and go around and fly the pattern. A pattern, as you know, is a rectangle that you're flying and you're making specific turns and coming back through into the pattern every single time. You know, we can fly in fields, we can fly at airports. I have flown out of Apple Valley, I've flown out of Hesperia Airport, and while I've never originated a takeoff at Victorville, I have flown over to Victorville and gone through there and done touch and goes on the runways and everything with the air traffic controllers over there, because Victorville does have a control tower. But we take people up for introductory flights, and you get to see the area and look at the Victor Valley from 1,000 to 2,000 feet, depending on what the winds are doing. And believe it or not, as you know, since you've flown, you can be at 1,000 feet, it could be bumpy and windy. Go up to 1,200 feet, it gets as smooth as glass.
Yeah, 1,300 feet, the bumpy comes back.
What's that?
Yeah, and 1,300 feet, the bump's coming back. So yeah,
it could be. I've seen weird stuff like that. You just, you know, you never know. And it's like you go up, oh, gee, it's nice and smooth here. Let's stay here. You know, wind up in the air, we catch different wind speeds sometimes. And I've had, you know, my airspeed on this Airwolf is about 35 miles an hour, but I've seen ground speeds in the 50, 60 mile an hour range, and I've seen them down to 15 miles an hour. That's depending on whether you're heading into the wind or got the wind at your back, you know. But it's just really relaxing up there, you know, putting along at 35 miles an hour airspeed and get a nice scenic tour of the area. On my website, there's a video as you scroll down the page, about a 2-minute video that shows me flying the Airwolf and shows some of the scenery here, including the Apple Valley Golf Course and Spring Valley Lake.
Yeah, in fact, let's go see. Or go jump on your website real quick.
Okay.
Bear with me. There you go. Okay, there's your website right there, correct?
That's the website, and that's the video you're looking at right on the center. It's about a 2-minute video.
Okay, let's see. It's going to be kind of small there.
Okay.
Let's see if we do full screen. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear the video, the audio in here, but we'll see.
Well, it's a little bigger on my screen now, but this video was shot with a drone and a photographer on the ground. And of course, he's promoting his video business too.
Yep. Yeah, we're maxing out the bandwidth we have here.
Okay, well, don't worry about it. It's there. They can see it on the website. It's on my Facebook page, and it's on my YouTube link on the Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, the Facebook page. Let me pop that stuff up real quick while we're at it. It is at Paraflite.com.
That's the website.
And phone number is 760-242-3fly.
Yeah.
Or 3359.
3359.
Get us back over here. Okay. So anyway, let me more kind of comparison against traditional plane versus the paraplane here. Obviously, you don't need as well the takeoff landing. Apparently, you don't need as much room to take off or land, or even let's say improved fields.
We don't need any wind. If there's no wind, it's ideal. But we can handle, you know, maximum wind speed. They say is 15 miles an hour in these. Typically, here on the ground, if I start seeing much more than 7 or 8 miles an hour in the desert here, if you've lived here more than a week, you know when the winds start getting up to that speed, they start gusting and changing directions on you, and you want to be taken off into the wind, or if you're a good pilot, you can handle crosswinds, okay? The problem with a downwind, our parachute's laying behind the aircraft when we are warming up and taking off, and if you get a gust of wind from the rear, it'll blow that $3,500 parachute into your propeller and make little cutout dolls out of it and ruin your day.
Yeah. And,
you don't want that to happen.
You end up flapping your arms on the way down then.
What's that?
You also end up flapping your arms on the trying to land the thing too.
Yeah, well, that won't happen in the air because you're always hanging under the wing, okay? One of the beautiful things about powered parachutes is it's a stall-resistant wing, and since you've had pilot training, you know what a stall is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and stalls, if you don't handle them correctly in an airplane, can be fatal. A powered parachute, because we're hanging under the wing like a pendulum, it'll only get to so steep of a climb angle, then it comes back automatically. You can't climb straight up with a powered parachute like you can with an F-18 fighter or something, okay? We don't have the power, and our wing won't allow us to do it. So you've got a very safe, forgiving aircraft, okay? And one of the other things I wanted to mention in our training, too, besides teaching you to fly, there's a lot of things you have to know academically, airspace, planning, aeronautical decision-making. I do a full ground school that's between 20 and 30 hours of classroom training in my dining room. So I guess it's dining room training there, right, Dan? Anyway, we do that. It's all done on PowerPoint. And we take them through all the material with sample test questions so they understand what they're going to be seeing. Because even though we've got a little less requirements for training, when you're flying, whether you're flying in a powered parachute or a Cessna, the airspace is the same. Okay, you're in the same airspace. You got to know the same rules and everything of what type of airspace you're in and where you possibly may not want to go. Okay, because we can fly in all the same airspace for the most part that a regular airplane can fly in. I would typically avoid airports like LAX and Ontario and John Wayne, but you know, I have flown at Torrance Airport, I've flown up at Camarillo, I've flown down in Riverside at Flaybob, and you know what you're doing, you're properly trained, it's not a problem to handle it.
Interesting. Also, you could just find a flat spot in the desert and land and take off and land there too if you wanted to.
Absolutely. You know, we typically fly from a field out here in Apple Valley that we give our students the location. But if you live out here, you see where we fly anyway. So it's just a matter of we set up an appointment and to come out and meet in the morning and fly. And typically up here, it's early morning flights at sunrise because the afternoons are too windy to fly. Other parts of the country,
I can imagine.
Morning and evening.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the winds we have, that after about noon or so, it must be very interesting to fly in the afternoon around here, to say the least.
Well, I wouldn't do it because it can get very dangerous. You know, if you're up there in those kind of winds, you got a lot of thermal activity and a lot of things that can happen because we've got a flexible wing versus a fixed wing. An airplane can handle more wind than we can, but I think this is more fun. Open cockpit flying, it's as close to the Wright brothers as you're going to get. Wind in your face, and in the right conditions, it's just really a hoot to fly. I've been doing it for coming on 28 years in August, and I still enjoy flying. I just hate getting up so early in the morning nowadays, you know?
Okay, by the way, too, we're going to do a for those of you who are paying attention here, we're going to do a live feed from a flight tomorrow morning, starting about 6 o'clock or so Pacific time. So we'll make sure we inform everybody as much as possible. We're also going to take some standard footage as well and compile up to a nice little video at the end too. So
we'll probably be in the air about 7. We'll get out there and pre-flight and set up, but we'll probably be in the air about 7. But go ahead.
Okay, so about 7 o'clock-ish or so, and we'll make sure everybody is informed as best as possible on this. So let's continue on here. Let's talk about. Now, you are also a dealer for the Paraflight, am I correct?
Yes, I sell the Parachute line of light sport aircraft, the Airwolf and the Pegasus. The Pegasus is the 65 horsepower two-stroke engine model. Quite honestly, I look at this sport, how it's grown over the years I've been in it. You know, the Airwolf is the most expensive model they make, and it's their best seller, because people are buying the 100 horsepower engines. They also make a package with a Honda Viking engine and using a Honda car engine as the actual engine package, it's 130 horsepower. That's about $5,000 less than the Rotax package. So, and then you get Honda parts, which are really inexpensive compared to Rotax parts. Rotax is aircraft, and when you put aircraft with anything, it gets a little pricier on things. Oil filters $20 versus $5 for the Honda.
Yeah, so like call it a Cadillac as opposed to a Chevy. So
yeah, but still the maintenance on a Rotax on a powered parachute is not near what it is on a Cessna. It's much easier. There's certain things you can do yourself. If you've got an experimental, you can do all the maintenance of whatever you feel qualified to do. On a special light sport, which is what I fly, and there's a differentiation. Let me explain it to you. Special light sport, or SLSA, is the same aircraft with parachute as an experimental light sport, or an ELSA. The difference is the certification, and it's factory test flown, and you can use that for commercial work, for training. The experimental light sports that are sold today can only be used for recreational flying, and if you owned one, I could train you in your experimental, but I couldn't use that plane to train for hire for commercial use, where I can use the special. And with parachute, it's the same aircraft except for paperwork. They send them out fully assembled either way, because they found over the years people assembling them don't always get them right, or they break apart, break a piece while they're assembling it, and or damage it, and they have to get a new replacement part. And parachute over the years has always felt bad when that happens, and Dan calls up and says, hey, I broke this part assembling it, I need a new one, and how much is it? And they tell you, and they send you the part and never send you a bill. So they found over the years, instead of sending them out as erector sets where you put them together, they send them out assembled, and it's cheaper in the long run because they're there. You've got a fully assembled aircraft, and your dealer will work with you on anything you need to do for break-in procedures on engines and stuff, and get you up in the air, make sure your parachute is properly attached or rigged to the airframe.
Yeah. Speaking of that too, I got some friends of mine that had dealt with building all the experimental planes, and that could be a huge undertaking, even if it's a relatively simple plane to put together. I got some friends of mine that took years and years and years to put the plane together. One started, he didn't have a pilot's license yet, and then toward the end of it, he finally got a pilot's license so he could fly his plane.
Yeah.
So it is. I would say at least partially assembled is a good thing, if you want my opinion on it. Fully assembled is even better. So,
well, experimental aircraft, those come with your riveting. You may be cutting out sheet metal to make the wing covering. The powered parachute, when you get it if it comes as a kit, it's usually all the tubing is bent, painted, the holes are drilled, and you just literally have to bolt it together. I've experienced that. My first aircraft, my Pegasus that I had from Parachute, came as an erector set, and I assembled it. It took me about 2 weeks to get it assembled. Sometimes my brother would help. Sometimes my brother and my neighbor would help. You needed more than 4 hands to hold certain things together and get it all together. And I flew that plane for over 1,600 hours before I sold it, and it's still going strong, just as tight as it was when it was new. But I've had the experience of building them once, and that's enough.
Yeah, that's better than 2 years or 5 years, as some of my other friends have done. But they're playing together. So
yeah, I've seen guys doing that. I've flown in some experimentals out at the airport, and they're really nice planes, but they don't go together overnight. There's a lot of things that you have to do to make it get it all together, and everybody tends to say again.
Yeah, to make it airworthy and safe airworthy. So
well, absolutely, and they have inspections that are done, and we have, all aircraft are required to have annual condition inspections done in the general aviation world by an A&P mechanic. In the powered parachute world, light sport world, which includes airplanes, it can be done by an A&P mechanic. It can be done by a light sport repairman with a maintenance rating, or if you have an experimental aircraft, there's a 16-hour course you can take, and then you can do your own annual condition inspection on your own aircraft only. Now, being a special light sport and doing training like I do, we're required to have an inspection done every 100 hours. So I have a 100-hour inspection done. And another little perk that's nice flying with me is because I actually do proficiency training for FAA inspectors and I'm an examiner, and then they have to check me out. I train them and keep them current so they can come out and fly with me and make sure I'm doing everything right. The FAA sends an inspector out from the Riverside office annually to inspect my aircraft as well for their internal use. That's not one that I can use as an annual, but they make sure it's all good because they're flying FAA personnel in it. And they just did that for me here in February. So, our plane is looked at by other people on a regular basis. And then of course we pre-flight every time we fly to make sure there's nothing loose or anything.
Yeah. Hey, but by the way, too, I meant to tell you too, the COVID-19, the lockdown. Kind of jump the subject a little bit. How does this affect your business? How are you coping with it? How do you plan to continue on launch, relaunch after this?
Okay, well, basically, since this has happened, my phone, I don't know if my phone works anymore because it doesn't ring very much. I'll be honest with you. We do a lot of introductory flights and we promote them on different platforms, and we get a lot of people coming up here from the LA Orange County basin, from San Diego, just to come up for intro flights. I am surprised. I get some local business off of the platforms I use, but not nearly as much as you'd think I would get. What we're going to do going forward, one of the things I always do on our head, we wear helmet headsets. Okay, so you're wearing a helmet, you've got your headsets and a microphone on it. We can talk back and forth. In aviation, the microphone has to be the sponge thing on the microphone has to be touching your lips. Well, we change those anyway, so you're not getting somebody else's microphone spongy thing on your lips. Okay. Well, what we're going to do now, in addition to that, is I got these little alcohol wipes, like they wipe your arm with before they stick a needle in. I'm going to wipe the ear cups down and everything, and I've got other disinfectant wipes. I can wipe other parts of the helmet down with it. And we will continue to change the sponge thingy out after every flight. Now, we're open cockpit, so we've always got the wind in our face, so we're not going to be 6 feet apart in the plane. You're going to be behind me in the back seat. I'm in the front seat, and I don't expect there to be any problems. I'm nice and healthy. Haven't had any of this. I do have allergies, so occasionally I'll be coughing and sniffing and stuff, but it's not from the virus, When this first came out, we used to joke, go into the grocery store, coughing in your arm, and go, I just got back from China, and watch them scatter like a bomb just went off.
You should see what I have to go through being Asian. It's quite a task just walking through Walmart sometimes. So
I've heard that. And it's unfortunate because you didn't cause it. Nobody here caused it. We won't go into that now, but
we'll leave the politics out of it. But anyway, hey, we're coming on 30 minutes of our discussion here. I want to we had a couple of people kind of pop in and pop out. I forgot to ask if anybody had any questions, but anyway, I was going to ask you if you want to kind of some last words or anything on this before, and of course we're going to push the live stream tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to be flying tomorrow. You've never been up in one of these. You've been up in an airplane. It's going to be a different experience for you, but I know you're going to love it. And, that's the goal of our instructional flights, introductory flights. We take people up. We hope they get hooked and want to get into the sport, and we'll help them get it. Besides training, there's a good used market out there for aircraft, so not everybody can pony up the money for a new powered parachute, but there's planes out there. I just helped one of my students that I trained last fall from Pahrump, Nevada. We ended up picking up a Pegasus that I sold new in 2014 that was like a $26,000 Pegasus, same airframe as I'm flying. He got it for $11,000, and he's extremely happy with it. It's just like a new plane. So I work with people. If I don't sell them a plane, I don't get my panties in a bundle over it. I want to help them get what they want and get a nice plane, and I look at what's available. I know the history of a lot of used aircraft out there, and I go, yeah, that's a good one. Nah, you don't want to go near that one because that might have been in an accident or something. So I know the different things about them, and I'll point them in the right direction, you know, because I
Good.
want to do
Okay.
what's best for my students and my customers.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to ask you during the inspection, the range on these things. I was fascinated. These could go a lot further than I thought.
Well, with my aircraft, Dan, I have the range to go nonstop from here to LAX.
Hmm.
Now, I wouldn't make that flight for two reasons. One, of course, they're not going to let me in that airspace. And two, one of the mountain ranges I have to go over to get to it is kind of heading out to west, slightly southwest. And going up over that peak, there could be some interesting winds up there that could ruin my day. You know, I'm not sure what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
I've been up to as high as 10,000 feet in these, okay? I mean, like what I used to do with a little single-seat paraplane is I'd go up to 10,000 feet out here in Apple Valley, shut the engine off, and just soar like a skydiver, okay? And I'd kind of stay over my field just in case the engine didn't want to start. Never had that happen, but I'd start up at about 1,000 feet and get the engine running and re-warm it up because it had cooled down, so I didn't want to have a cold seizure or anything on a two-stroke, and re-warm that engine and then continue flying some more. But like I say, the range, I could fly anywhere here in the high desert. I've flown, did a cross-country flight a few years ago with my FAA inspector. We flew out to Llano and back. I was doing that so I'd have all the requirements for a private pilot rating for powered parachute. And the only difference that rating gives you over a sport rating is you can fly at night if your aircraft's equipped that way, and you can go higher than 10,000 feet above sea level, which most people don't do in a powered parachute, you know.
Plus
go ahead.
Yeah. Plus the sports pilot training, it definitely a good stepping toward your PPL. So
yeah, I mean, I've got all the requirements for private. The biggest thing I haven't been able to do it is because I need to get an instructor to fly with me for 3 hours and endorse me for the practical test. And there's not that many of them around, and the few that I know are back east. So it's not that big a deal for me. Once I get that endorsement, then I can have my FAA inspector do my practical test for me, you know, and then I'll take the written test at that point. I'm not worried about any of those things at all, but it's just a matter of getting that done. But like I say, you can go places in these in the morning. They're not made for going places because you might get somewhere and it's too windy to fly back, you know, if you go on a longer flight. So you kind of want to take off and fly and get back to your field of takeoff with them. It's recreational flying.
Yeah, that's the licensing for it. So,
right.
But yeah, like I say, I would think, you know, my first impression was, oh, maybe you had 10, 20 miles, whatever, and a, you know, half an hour hop, but these things can go quite a distance here. So,
yeah, the single seat.
You told me that a long time ago.
Say again?
Yeah, you told me that quite a while ago. I was just, wow, really? So,
you know, the single seat ultralights, they're limited to 5 gallons of gas, and most powered parachutes, you're going to have about an hour to hour and 20 minutes flight time. And they limited the ultralights to 5 gallons because there's no license required. You can't fly over populated areas. So they want you out in the boonies, away from population and things like that. So you basically, they don't have the range that you have with a 2-seat, because you have to have the aeronautical knowledge to fly a 2-seat powered parachute, just like you do for a Cessna or any other airplane.
Okay. Well, cool. All right. Well, you know, I'm looking forward to our hop tomorrow morning.
You're going to love it.
I'm sure I am. It's been a while since I've been up in the air with that wasn't a commercial jet.
Yeah.
So I kind of miss the bumps and the rolls.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know. At one time, I never wanted to fly in anything unless it said Boeing on it, you know, sitting back there. After I got into powered parachutes now, I love flying around with guys in Cessnas and whatever else, you know. It's just a whole different world out there. And it's just like, yeah, it's fun to be up in the air looking down on everything. You know, once you've been up in the air with the birds, it's a whole different perspective.
It certainly is, that's for sure. So, okay, let me give you your extra here. Your shameless plug. Phil, what do you want to do? A quick shameless plug before we call it?
Oh, for me?
You there? Yeah, for you.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were coming back to me. Yeah. Well, basically, like I say, we want to get people out flying these. We'll have some good deals for you if you call us up and set up an intro flight. Everything is weather permitting, though, because we want to fly when the winds are low for safety reasons and enjoying flights. Although I'll tell you something funny real quick here, Dan. There's been times I've been up in the air and the weather decides to go from good to bad and it's bumpy and I'm working my tail off to get the aircraft back down on the ground smooth and safely, and my passenger is totally oblivious. We're getting bounced all over the place. They go, that was pretty cool. And I go, yeah, as I wipe my brow and go, thank God this is over with, because it's just sometimes really hairy. But I've been doing this for so long, got over 3,100 hours. I managed to get it down safe and smooth, and my passenger doesn't know the difference, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
kind of clear the brown out of your shorts there.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I've had some, I've never had that happen, but I've had some instances where it's like, oh my God, as we're coming in, the wind's shifting, and it's like a dance bringing that thing in smooth and getting it down, you know, nice, smooth, and safe when it's bumpy. You know, normally it's just come in, line up on the runway, adjust your power, flare your pedals, and smooth, you're on the ground. Most people say, gee, are we on the ground already? You know, how many times have you flown on an airliner where you wonder who's going to pick up the pieces out on the runway after they've landed?
Yeah, tell me about it. So, well, okay. Well, Phil, thank you for being on the air with me, and I'm looking forward to our hop tomorrow morning, and we're going to be live casting it tomorrow. You say 7 o'clock, we'll probably hop out?
Probably be in the air by 7. We're going to get out there at 6 and do all the stuff we need to do, and then get the wings set up, and hopefully by 7 or so we'll be up in the air flying. I don't think it'll be too cold out there, you know, compared to what it's been, but it'll probably be in the 50-degree range, so dress accordingly.
Yeah, I got to remember that because I'm used to having a heater in my plane.
Yeah, ain't no heater in this one, you know. The heater's that bulb up in the sky.
All right. Well, cool. Okay, well, let me close this out. Thanks again, Phil, for being on the air with me.
My pleasure.
All right. Okay, let me close out, and we'll go right back to you. Okay, folks. Like I say, that's Phil Dietro with Inland Paraflite, and we're going to be doing a hop tomorrow morning, a live stream, hopefully from 7 o'clock on, and that's going to be April 28th. For these, I see this it says a little later. Also, if a little bit of plug for me, if you want to check this and other shows out on the COVID-19 experience, epidemic, all this stuff, or anything internet related to your business, you can go to primeconstant.net and check that out over there, where we have 157 episodes plus a Tech Talk. And also, if you need help with anything related to your business, related to COVID-19 or anything else, give me contact at you can call me. You literally call us up 760-247-4814, or email me at danharley@primeconstant.net, which is on the screen right now. And all caps, if you need help. If you need help, said help, so I understand where you are. I get lots and lots of emails, so I want to make sure I catch you before it goes. I buzz by here. Also, do me a big favor. Share this episode with friends and colleagues if you'd like it. Hopefully, this information will be beneficial to somebody out there, and be entertained with them too. And so I'm looking forward to the flight tomorrow. And that said, for you folks out there, thank you for listening and watching, and good luck and Godspeed and online success, and be safe out there.